Thanks for the warm welcome. You said earlier it's not Star Wars Day. I disagree. I watched the early viewing today. No spoilers. My name is Wolf. I work at Google as a technical solutions engineer, and I lead a small team here in Zurich. Our mandate is to make sure that all of you who use maps stay up. So we are a support team, and our mandate is to make sure our customers stay up. We don't. So you might have been talking to some of us. I've been working at Google for the past 9 years. So there's high chance that I have met some of you online. Anyways, enough about me. So what is the Google Maps platform? Well, we started mapping in 2005. And since then, we've done tons. We've done everything from mapping the depths of the bottom of the sea to mapping some nearby planets like Mars and Venus, and everything in between. But fundamentally, the idea is to essentially, as always, to answer one question: how do you map the world? Well, you essentially need. It's not just roads, and it's not just all the addresses. What about then things like addresses outside of cities, or every small location in tiny villages, etc., etc. So, and then we want to make it also super accurate. So essentially, we want to model the world. And so how do we do it? Well, we start by using a bunch of crazy cars. Then we take also a bunch of car-like things. Incidentally, the guy there on the trike on the left side, he's Mike Pegg, who is our lead on developer relations in Mountain View. So he's he's also done some of this imagery. And finally, we need a bunch of people. So what we do is we have a whole bunch of people essentially contributing to the maps. We have over 1 billion daily active users across the globe. We have 60 million local guides who make millions of daily contributions to our place data. And then we have millions of developers on Google Maps platform. We also need a few robots. Well, actually not robots, more like AIs working on really hard things. Like, for instance, on this picture, based on the picture on the left, we were able to pick out the address and the exact storefront, even though it's behind a tree, by just having enough imagery and smart enough AI to deal with that. We sort of provide you then with 3 core sets of APIs and SDKs. We have what we call maps, routes, and places. And with maps, we mean essentially a way for you to display a map. It might be on your website, it might be in your app, it might be on something completely different. So we provide a few SDKs and APIs. Who here knows about the JavaScript API? Who here uses the JavaScript API for maps? How about mobile? Android and iOS? Interesting. We have a full SDKs for Android and iOS, where you can essentially create rich interactive maps. And we also have a few additional APIs. So Embed Maps Api allows you to embed an iframe with an interactive map. We have static maps, which allows you to show like a picture of a map. Or Street View API, which essentially gives you similar with the static maps, where you just have a real-world imagery with a 360 panorama. We also have stylings for our maps. So you can go from this night mode to having, map matching the colors of your web page to fully custom maps. This is actually from I think one of the Disney parks where they have actually customized the map highly. We also provide really accurate maps. Here we can see some sort of, well, we can't really see on that one. Anyway, imagine there's lots of dots. These are essentially, we have millions of daily updates. Essentially, we have almost 200 updates every second on our maps. This could be place information. You might have noticed the report a problem link on maps. That's also one way to report or change map data on the data. And all this data that you can see on Google Maps is also available essentially through the APIs. So then we have routes. Routes gives us essentially good directions. It allows us to go from place A to place B. And so you can create, with the Directions API, you can show a direction. And in the JS API, also in the mobile, allows you to drag the route around and it'll snap to roads and it'll do some optimizations. The Distance Matrix API is a kind of a funny thing. Funny story, it was coined by one of our PMs, I think around 6 years ago. He had always dreamt. I always looked at, so if you ever look at an old atlas, you see these sort of city names and weird numbers. And it shows you like essentially the shortest route between, or distance between those two cities. Usually it's like you have like Sydney here, Zurich here, and then you can see a cross-reference. And essentially that's what the Distance Matrix API provides you. So you can have these sort of matrix essentially with these distances. And it allows you to do all kinds of tricks where you can quickly find the actual distance between several locations. Some people use that for optimized routing. And also the Directions API is able to optimize the route for you. Then we have the Roads API, which is, allows you to determine exactly a precise route that a vehicle has taken based on the GPS point. And so yeah, these provide like a reliable directions pretty much anywhere in the world. We have 65 million kilometers of roads covered by driving directions. The equator is around, I think, around 12-ish thousand kilometers. So it's quite many times around the world. And finally, we have the Places. The Places API is a pretty cool set of APIs, which, as the Places API itself, allows you to have information about places like stores or restaurants. You can get information about them like opening hours, some more info about them, like a picture, for instance, etc., etc. And in the JS API, you can just sort of include with a library, you can include the whole thing in there, and then you get access to all these places. And we also have a separate SDK for Android and iOS for these. And then we have a few sort of place-related APIs. Time zone API, it's actually surprisingly difficult to determine what's the time zone of a specific place. Unless, that's why we created the time zone API, so we can see that more easily figure out, oh, he's in America, for instance, for a user, and determine like what's the time difference between there and here, and be able to calculate that. The Geocoding API is actually one of our more popular APIs. It essentially converts addresses to lat-longs. So if you have an address and you want to know where in the world is this address, it converts that to a lat-long. And the geolocation allows you to essentially position your, usually like on cell phones, we support a few other things, but it's basically based on cellular and GPS, without relying on GPS. So if you have like, you might not have GPS coverage in all areas, for instance, etc. Based on cell towers and Wi-Fi nodes, etc. So if you have a very dense urban buildings with tall buildings, GPS has a surprisingly difficult time of reaching you down there. But luckily, there's usually in these environments, there are lots of Wi-Fi's and other sort of points of reference where we can sort of locate. So essentially, we're here to help. Essentially, everybody who uses maps can also contact support and ask for help. We're there to help. We also have sort of a very active developer-driven community on Stack Overflow. We're also on Stack Overflow ourselves, answering questions. We also have our public issue tracker, which if you find a bug, please report it so we can fix it. And then if you find, or you can just search for some bugs in case you have seen something going on. We also usually tend to open preemptively bugs if we know there's a big change coming, so that people can follow on that bug or report surprisingly additional info or get more info about it. And then yeah, you can reach me and my team on GMP support. Short and sweet. Thanks all for listening. Please come talk to me and ask questions, and I'll be happy to answer all kinds of questions. Thanks.